So let me ask you this question then, because I get this a lot, and I know I've seen you get this before you ever actually got a chance to meet. The whole stigmatism of being a Mortal Kombat hater. Do you feel like that's fair, or do you feel like it's just based on you speaking honestly about the game? Because I kind of get that a lot myself.
Well, I feel like this. The game, a franchise that has normally outsold its competitors by millions is now only ahead by a few thousand and will probably lose to both. Mm-hmm. So I would say the majority of planet Earth would be considered a Mortal Kombat hater in that regards. Mortal Kombat community has always imagined this false claim that the whole planet is against Mortal Kombat. But if I look at the sales numbers, it just shows that most people are normally pro Mortal Kombat. I've always been an MK guy, even from the beginning. I'm probably one of the very few people who can say they played Mortal Kombat 1, the original Mortal Kombat 1.
Same here.
On its original retail launch date. I'm on the East Coast, so I'm ahead of everyone else time zone wise. And I was there when it got rolled in on, I believe it was October 8th. I know it was, I can't say it was the 8th for sure, but I know it was, I remember it very clearly because I was a teenager. I was in the first 1 or 2 weeks of October. So I'm one of the first people I ever played on its original retail launch in arcades. And I've traveled for Mortal Kombat tournaments when there was no money, and I've lost thousands on Mortal Kombat. Even the 3D era, I would travel for games. I would spend $500 just to win 50. Mm-hmm. It was never about, winning money. It was never about YouTube videos because nobody cared. No one knew what was going on back then. It was just because I just loved Mortal Kombat. I loved playing people in Mortal Kombat, and I wanted to play different people, and I wanted to compete and beat different people. It was just, I loved the game and I loved competing. And it really had nothing to do with anything else. And you don't do that unless you truly love the game. I've dedicated many, many years, an embarrassing amount of years to my life to Mortal Kombat. And when I speak now, it's about passion. It's because I love the game. Now, if I didn't love the game, I wouldn't talk about it at all, and I would just leave it and never, nobody would care. I don't think people dive in this much to a game or are passionate on something they don't care about.
Mm-hmm. That makes total sense. I feel like the reason I say that is because Mortal Kombat 11 sold so well, and this one isn't being received that greatly. And anytime I criticize the game, my Twitter goes insane. I go kind of viral from criticizing the clip or something like that. But I feel like that's a regular occurrence within this game, and I don't really understand why it feels like this version of Mortal Kombat isn't made with love as the past ones are. Does it just feel like a cash grab to you, or is it just about the mechanics of the game that kind of bother you?
So this game, I feel like, is a product of Mortal Kombat 11. It was built off Mortal Kombat 11. I mean, I don't care what anybody says. It was built off MK11.
Intentionally?
What I feel like its foundation is built off Mortal Kombat 11's foundation. If I were to say which Mortal Kombat does this resemble most, its gameplay resembles more of Mortal Kombat 11 than MK9 or MKX out of all the NRS games.
It's like you said that.
I feel like, and I didn't say it was Mortal Kombat 11. People kind of take it that way. I know there's assists, and they got rid of some of the other things that we didn't like, the meter system, all that stuff. However, it's core as far as the overall gameplay system, the poking system, all that stuff is from MK, more so MK11. It resembles more of an you can go from MK11 to MK1, but you can't go from 9 to MK1 or X to MK1 is what I mean to say.
Okay.
I really think that the MK11, that a lot of people speak out about it now, that the majority of people didn't like the game. However, during its time period, probably the bigger content creators were always talking about how the game was fine. It's the best Mortal Kombat game ever made.
Mm-hmm. I'm one of those to some extent.
All these things. And then if you're NetherRealm Studios and you say, well, we made a game with nothing, with no power. We abandoned it halfway through, even though we said we would maintain it. Mm-hmm. And it sold 15 million copies, and the people with hundreds of thousands of followers on YouTube said it's the best MK game ever.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you going to build the next game off of? The one that was the most profitable, where you did the least to make it profitable. That's a great business formula. The polish of the game down from MK11, correct? From day one launch.
100%.
The effort in the Pro Series significantly down, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Everything was down. Because why are we going to do all this if we can do none of it and make money? And at the end of the day, that's where it comes from. And I think if people would have spoke up in MK11 instead of like, I feel like MK11 sold well because initially it got a huge burn. People always thought like we could see the potential in the game, and NRS had built up a lot of goodwill from MK9 and MKX.
Yeah.
And people didn't want an Injustice game back. Injustice 2 rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. So I feel like a lot of those sales were in that retrospect from early on. And I think we always kept thinking like, well, the groundwork is here, right? All they have to do is tweak some of the custom moves so that we can have a custom variation system, retweak some of the slotting so that we can have some freedom in how the characters play, or if you want some moves, you can make them more powerful or less powerful, whatever they want to do. And I think we all thought that they would eventually go there. We could see the potential, but it never happened. And then they were like, yeah, we're done. So when MK1 came out, I feel like, again, people started to give them the benefit of the doubt. As we could see, it sold 3 million in its first 3 months. That's a huge sales.
Yeah, humongous.
And then it sold 1 million in the next 9 months. So people at a certain point realized, like, no, it's the same thing. This isn't what we want. And they have lost faith in NRS's ability to change anything. And I honestly think that for the first time, they're going to lose out to Tekken and Street Fighter. And I think a bigger issue is the only reason why they would go from the king of sales to now kind of fighting to really keep that title, I think they will inevitably be overtaken. Mm-hmm. The only way that happens is you pissed a lot of fucking people off. And it's never good. It's never good when your customer base is pissed off.
Yeah, I mean the Evo signups and all that would make that very clear. I think like what you mentioned about MK11 and this being built off of it, I'm surprised that you have that opinion. Only because of the fact that I feel like the game is so different. So I guess maybe you just mean business model per se.
I don't think it's different. I mean, MK11 was built off my turn, your turn stealing meta, slow mids. Down one, like do a poke, low negative frames, down one or backdash, it beats most mids. They down one you or backdash, and then their strike throw, poke. It's still built off the same core. Now they have expanded on it slightly and toned some things down and also given things like up block, things like that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But at its core, it's founded off of the MK11 combat formula, is what I mean to say.
Yeah, I get that, but I guess my thing is, because I'm one of those creators who said that MK11 was the best one. I play MKX and MK9, but I guess like MK11 just resonated with me more. And part of that bias could be based on the fact that I made content for the game and it helped grow the channel, right? But I believe
it was your first serious competitive Mortal Kombat game, right?
Well, I wouldn't consider myself like competitive in regards to playing like
but internally. As far as where you really got serious about it.
Well, I took the time to like legitimately get good. Yeah, probably so. I would say that would be fair to say. Yeah,
so
that would be fair to say.
So it was like, this is, I played here and there casually, but this is the MK that I really decided to get good, learn about the inside in and outs of the game, and make content for it.
Yeah, probably like as far as the deepest I've ever went, because I was good at the others, but that was more like you naturally play your friends, you naturally play online. This one is probably like the first one I learned like matchups and things of that nature and so on to make like fun content. But even outside of that, I don't find Mortal Kombat 11 to be that fun. Like the content I've made around Mortal Kombat, or not Mortal Kombat 11, I'm sorry, Mortal Kombat 1. The content I've made around Mortal Kombat 1 since Decada drop has been content like this. I've played the game like twice. It's just not fun to me compared to...
So you find MK11 fun, but not MK1?
I find the replay factor is significantly different. That's what I feel like. I mean, they both can be fun.
As like an enjoyment factor, did you like it, love it?
Yeah, Of course you raged with it, but MK11 was fun to play overall.
Okay.
MK1 doesn't seem that fun to play on a consistent basis.
Okay, so you are someone that I would definitely love to talk to then, because, and I'll go where I'm going here in a second. What is it about MK1 that you say, look, I just don't have a good time at all, as opposed to MK11?
So I think it's a multitude of things. I think first of all, the cameo system, like the way that works, I think that's like a negative. Secondly, because of the fact that certain characters are so dependent on it that it takes out the fun of your character in itself as a base. And then kind of all the gimmicky stuff like down one cameo call, like just a lot of like or certain things, for instance, like striker grenades off screen, like some things that have been tweaked. But overall, it doesn't feel like Mortal Kombat to me. It feels like
so
a
it's
bad
a lot of the cameo
game.
Stuff. You're saying the cameo stuff.
The foundation of the game is terrible. It's awful.
Okay,
the foundation of the game is awful.
But they took the foundation of MK11 and then added the cameo stuff to it. But you're saying a lot of what the cameo stuff does to the game doesn't feel like MK to you anymore.
Well, is that and the combination of every cameo doesn't have enough fun factor to like replay them. Like I remember, for instance, when I picked up Reptile, I wanted to make a team that didn't involve Scorpion because I was watching Honeybee setups, and I went through the whole entire cameo roster. And based on the way that I wanted to play with Reptile, by the end of it, I felt obligated to pick Scorpion to do what I wanted to do. So it feels limited in that capacity.
Like a freedom.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, sure. What if I were to tell you that it's only the cameo? The cameo only replaced the variation system in MK11, which did the same thing. So you're interesting to me, and I love this one. I'm so glad I got a chance to talk to you. So the Mortal Kombat community now, even in 11, we heard people were carried, how everything was broken, etc. Right?
Mm-hmm.
The two least broken fighting games maybe ever made are MK11 and MK1. Yet they are constantly talked about how everything is broken. The community used to be different a long time ago. So in MKX, for example, we had some of the most ridiculous stuff. Pre-patch Tanya, like, come on, man. There were 6 Tanyas in top 8 at CEO. Like, I think there were just 2 characters for the most part in the top 16. There might have been 3 or 4 characters tops. But pre-patch Tanya, for example, over the top. But the community wasn't talking about who's carried and who's not. It was, are we sure she's broken? We need more time. It's day 1 Alien. There was a lot of talk of, toward the end of the Evo time, when the Sonic Fox Tekken Master thing, we knew at that point, like, okay, 9 months of it, Alien's a bit much.
Yeah.
But at first, are we sure it's too over the top? Now, there are always some people that are going to cry. There's always someone going to watch us and say, no, Tom. People were complaining too. There are always going to be people that are, but they were the minority. The difference is the cries about brokenness and carried were the minority. The majority, the elder statesmen of the community, the more established players, the top players, were mainly talking a way of, hey, this is only 1 month old, less than 1 month old. How do we know there's a lot of power in this game? How do we know there's not a counter to it? How are we sure? 100% sure it's too much. And someone's always going to bring up the Scorpion debacle in Injustice 1, but the Scorpion was out for 3 months, I think, or 2 months before we made that decision. So it still wasn't even an over the top thing. And it was the right call. However, a lot of the community then pushed back. Are we sure he's broken? Are we sure he's over the top? And the decision to get him nerfed was highly scrutinized, despite how powerful he might have actually been. And I know my boy PL will still argue with me to this day that he wasn't that bad. However, the community went from a place of the most extreme power, and we were saying, are we sure it's too much? To now no power, and we're saying it's broken and everybody's carried. It's because of how the community was brought up. The NRS community was brought up, introduced to MK9. And MK9 and Injustice 1 were so powerful in a lot of ways that even in games like MKX, where the power is over the top, probably even more so than some of those games, we're still like, are we sure? Are we sure? Are we sure? Anyone that came in with, and when MK11 came out, I would say 99% of those that came in with 9 and X left. It was they were promised a game that was going to play more like those games, and it didn't live up to that. They left. So then you built a brand new NRS community. built off balance and no power whatsoever. So now when you come to MK1, Johnny Cage is broken, Peacemaker was quote unquote broken, Homelander's broken. These characters are some of the weakest characters in fighting game history, yet we call them broken. The MK community has lost all identity. It doesn't know what it wants. A lot of people left because they were hoping a return to power. So people in MK, so what you have now, people from MK11, they don't like how the cameo interactions work. They don't like how you said like, hey, I don't like how my cameo, I gotta pick one. I can't pick how you give me all these cameo options that are supposed to allow me to play a different way, only to find out, nope, I can only play one way, this way. And then the community will say, well, that's your fault, Lou. You know, and you're like, well, you have modes that promote creativity that offer none. So it's lost its base, its players from 9 and X. It's lost a lot of its players from 11. And now it's only got people from 1. Now, for NRS to do a 180 to where they start selling 15, 20 million copies again and say, we're gonna do what we did to be Mortal Kombat, we're gonna feed you the most obnoxious power possible. Everyone that's here today will hate every second of it. However, you'll bring everybody back and the tournament scene will come back and it will grow.
So you think it's based on power alone is what you think it's just based on power alone is why the numbers
it's
are
based
down.
on most, look, people are going to complain about everything. Most people want power as in, I want it, but you shouldn't have it. And they'll be fine doing their stuff. They'll be fine doing their stuff to you. Even now in MK1, you'll come online, you'll have a Sindel player trying to zone you out, etc., or run away from you, right? Or whatever character wants to run away from you, right? Katana or whoever, right? Try to lame you out. If you lame them out and beat them the same way, then they'll cry and tell you they don't come online to chase. Oh, you don't come online to chase. Yeah, you come online to be chased. You see my point? Or they'll pick a character or Homelander and try to mix or whatever. But if you mix them with Farah, they'll say, oh, that's broken. I don't come online to get mixed, or you show them a Johnny Cage. I don't come online to, whatever. This is mindless offense. Yet they're trying to do that to you.
I've seen some of that recently. I've seen some of that about Farah getting complained about.
It's in a weird place where they're very vocal right now. We know they don't want to be mixed from Farah. They don't want to be mixed, but they also don't want to be ran away from. They don't want to be zoned. They don't want to be trapped. They don't want a grappler to get in and grapple them over and over and over again. So if you can't mix, zone, run away from somebody, trap them, or grapple, what options are left? Johnny Cage.
I see what you're saying.
Johnny Cage. By the way, who was in the grand finals of Final Kombat?
Of course, yeah.
And who was in the grand finals of Evo?
But see, my thing is like, I get what you're saying.
Hold on,
with
one more time. They introduced one other archetype for a short period of time called Zoner. Who was the only other character that was picked in Final Kombat? Top 8? I
get your point of view with that, but okay, essentially you're saying there's no real variety because there's no identity in this game. Do you feel that it was applicable to Mortal Kombat 11?
Yeah,
I don't know if I feel that way. I know about
people think Cetrion or RoboCop were a zoner, but if you actually went up against a real zoner, you would soon change your mind of the definition of that term.
By the end of Mortal Kombat 11, it was all pretty much Slight Gas, Cabal, Fujin, and a little bit of Kotal Khan. But I don't think that was based on variety. I thought that was skill in players.
So you just told me, you as an MK11 fan, by the end of the game, you dominantly saw only a handful of characters, right?
Of course, yeah.
And in the top 8s, you mainly saw Fujin, Kotal Khan, and Gas Kaban, right? And you saw, if Foxy was there, you would see a RoboCop, for example, right? But few and far between would do that in top 8 of the biggest offline majors. The last Evo for MK11 ended in what? What was the grand finals?
Wasn't that 21, 22?
Was it a Fujimura? Ninja Kill and Scorpion Fox, right?
Yeah, it was Fujimura, yeah.
Okay, Fujimura. And this is supposed to be the era of balance now. The era of we're lowering the power level for Fujimura. Okay. Can you please tell me the grand finals of Final Kombat for MK1?
I don't even remember if I watched it recently. I think as I've found it to be less and less fun, I don't really watch it as much.
Okay,
I know I saw a ton of Peacemaker in the past year for sure.
Okay, Final Combat in MK1 was Grand Finals was Johnny Cage Mirror. And can you tell me the Evo Grand Finals?
Was that Sonic? That one?
Yeah.
Wasn't that Johnny?
Johnny. So what I know is in the era of quote unquote balance, we saw the final Evo was a Fujin mirror in MK11. Then Final Combat in MK1, still in the era of quote unquote balance, Johnny Cage mirror. And then in Evo, Johnny Cage. So the last three big Mortal Kombat tournaments of the last two games were all mirrors.
You don't think that could just be coincidence though?
An MK9, a Cabal mirror, very rare. Mm-hmm. Because most players, look, it's going to offend a lot of you modern players today. You ain't got it like that. You couldn't even control that character. Now, I'm not saying there weren't some. There are plenty in our community right now, top players, where there are a few that it does fit that skill set. But most players ain't got it like that. It was rare to see Kenshi mirrors. It was rare to see, Cyrex was a one-touch character. You rarely saw Cyrex mirrors. Mm-hmm. You know, it didn't end. It was not, MK9 was never like, oh my God, top 8's a Cabal Fest. People will say, well, play it today and see what happens. You guys, most of you would never even, you would pick that character up and put him down and say, nope, I can't do it. Most players today would quit a game like MK9, for example, or in some ways MKX. The modern player today, they talk about how they quit Injustice 2 because it was in zones it's just ass, the zoning, blah, blah, blah. Peacemaker, broke makers back, zone. If you took them back to one of those games, they would just quit. Quit.
So your view is just different. You're essentially saying it's just two different bases. That's what they hate it.
When it was more broken and more powerful, you saw more variety. Not because the game was balanced, because with more power, not like Uncle Ben, with great power comes great responsibility, like Spider-Man. With great power comes great possibility. Because more characters can do more because they are significantly more powerful. Now, it may not be the most balanced. MK9, I think the lowest on the tier list that a character could place in the top 8 was probably number 20 or 21, I believe, out of 28 or 30 characters. Which means there are still, 6, 7, 8 characters that are not doing it. But with a game that powerful, to have that many characters that have power, that's a good amount of variety. That's more characters today that have power.
I get that.
Than today that have power. So with great power comes great possibility. And that is the difference. People will say nobody wants that kind of power. Really? I can't tell. I just Third Strike beat the brakes off Mortal Kombat. If you held a Marvel 2 tournament today, even though people are doing Iron Man one-touch kills and everything else, and Iron Man's not even, the cream of the crop in that game, but there's a lot of busted stuff in that game. However, Marvel would quadruple the more. If you held a Third Strike Pro Series tournament today and had the grand prize be $100, it would have more entrants than a Mortal Kombat Pro Series tournament for $200,000, because people just love to fucking play.
So, okay, if that's the case, right? Because I think you and me got two different, I think we have two different angles on this. You're more or less talking about the more power makes more things fun, and the community is kind of split in half and it shifted some. Do you think that this game would be salvageable by making more things broken? Because I just think that the foundation of the Kameo system
not broken.
Just isn't good.
Broken is a dumb.
Because I don't think the game is broken. I think that I just don't think that it's fun per se.
It's too generic right now. Here's why: because the Kameo system says, "What is the Kameo flavor of the month?" Play that Kameo, and everybody do the same thing that the Kameo allows them to do. The problem with that is when you have characters on the lower scale, right? Like maybe a Reptile, and people will try to say Reptile's top. We all know he's not super top, right? He's better, but Reptile is not in the top 3, top 5 discussion. People will say, well, it's okay if certain characters who are low tier use a Pharah or a Chameleon because it makes them better. However, what happens is when you go to the top tier, they're saying, well, those characters don't have any of those weaknesses. They shouldn't be mixing you safely with a ton of health, right? Or they should, but they are. So the problem is the cameo system doesn't even work because it may help some of the lower tiers, but then people cry all day about the top tiers using them. And it kind of makes everything generic. People are just saying, oh, I'm being mixed by Farah. They're not saying I'm being mixed by a character. They're saying they're being mixed by the cameo. That's the problem.
I've seen a lot of that, yeah.
All the power needs to be in the character. If people's characters could do 100% of their own heavy lifting, and the cameo only became the bonus, you would have a lot more possibilities, and they can change some of the cameos around to do that. The problem is they are not able to give the characters 100% of the ability to do their own heavy lifting because the cameo is a variable, and they keep introducing more variables that aren't done yet. Whatever the final cameo that ever gets introduced into Mortal Kombat 1 is, they have no idea right now what the fuck that cameo is going to do. It's still in, who knows, right? We're developing it. Mm-hmm. So if you give characters power like that, then you have to worry about when we introduce a variable, what happens, right? Like, imagine they mega powered all the characters and introduced Farah. People would be like, this is stupid! Because their variables are not complete, which is the cameo, the characters will never be complete. They keep introducing these garbage, gimmicky systems, which prevent them from making complete fighting games. NRS has confused its audience, and it's really pissed them off. Mm-hmm. They have mistakenly correlated casual to mean a stupid person. As in, we have to give them something gimmicky that's quote unquote new to keep our sales coming. But we see now, while it is selling well compared to its competitors, it's only very slightly. But it's a regression from the way they used to sell. Either way, they're making less money than they once did, despite making more than their competitors. If I was making $1 billion a year, and my competitors were making 500 million, and now I went from making $1 billion a year to making 550 million, I could say I'm still selling more than my competitors, but I'm still feeling it, right?
Yeah,
so
for sure.
At the end of the day, they have made a crucial mistake, and they have really pissed their audience off. Their audience are not stupid people. Oh, it's the quote-unquote casuals game. People mistake the casual for the idiot who sits around mashing buttons going, what am I gonna do? That is no longer the casual.
Yeah,
casuals
for sure.
understand quite a lot. Casuals have access to information. They can understand how to do things. They can do things for their own. NRS is stuck in the Stone Ages where, hush, hush, don't say anything, kind of like the arcade days, don't tell anything, don't wait till the last second, don't let anybody know what you have planned, don't communicate. The casuals are stupid people who are mashing buttons, who are trying to find out what fatality moves are. They're stuck in that mindset. They have not evolved for the modern era. And it has pissed off their fan base now. They have gone with gimmicks over substance. And the MK community has no idea. Like, they refuse to, it's saying everything in sales wise. People are saying like, oh, well, the tournament numbers were always bad. Tournament numbers were always relative to the era. MK has beaten Tekken many, many times at big tournaments in the era of MK9 and MKX. And even early MK11, because people were still kind of riding that MK9, MKX kind of wave of goodwill. Mm-hmm. And MK was very competitive it earned its spot in the big three, while Street Fighter always had more. MK had a good percentage of it, even going to 2019, to where a game like Street Fighter would have, I believe Street Fighter had almost 2,000, Tekken had almost 1,900, and MK had almost 1,700. It was very relative as one of the quote-unquote big three. And then after that, people realized, okay, this is not what we want during the rest of MK11, and it fell hard, and it's continued to fall. And this lie that MK has, no one's ever shown up for it, well, that's simply not true, and there are numbers that back that up. Over the last 4 years or so, or 5, that has been the case, but that was not always the case for Mortal Kombat. So I really think that they have really pissed off their audience right now by using more of a gimmicky system that is designed in a way that doesn't allow them to change anything. If they were
Yeah.
to mega buff all, let's say the last cameo will come out, let's believe Ed Boon, and say they're going to keep maintaining this. Let's say there's a Combat Pack 3. And let's say there's a Combat Pack, or let's say the end of Combat, let's say the last cameo in Combat Pack 2. Let's say it's going to be like Madame Bo. Let's just guess, right? Madame Bo will come out next, let's say next August, first week of August of next year. Do you think right now they have any idea how the hell that cameo is going to play right now?
I would highly doubt it. I don't really know how you would introduce any more originality because it feels like there's already enough here, or at least enough things outside of the box. But I don't know what you would introduce. So what you're saying is what I'm saying about the foundation. Like, I don't see how you save this at all. I've been saying that for months.
Exactly. So let's say they've steroid buff your character, Reptile, mega buff him. Do you think right now they would know how Madame Bo as a cameo coming out 1 year from today would play with a mega buffed Reptile?
Of course not.
So what can they do except for not buff any of the characters, really? Make sure that they all kind of stay in a weakened state and just keep putting the power in the cameo and say, well, at least we can know the cameo will be more powerful, and they'll do some heavy lifting. Because the variable is they've introduced a variable system to which it can greatly upset the apple cart. So the problem is, if the characters have all the juice, when you introduce a cameo, it's a variable where you don't really know like how this is going to affect everything. And these are problems down the line that they can't even foresee because those cameos haven't even been created yet. Most people will say, well, Tom, doesn't that mean that why can't they test these things and balance these cameos? Because that would require work, and NRS will always do the least amount of work possible. That is their modern design. NRS is the employee at his desk who will not do any work unless the boss is standing over there watching. That is what NRS has become. They will always do the least amount possible. That's what they have done since MK11, and they continue to do so.
Are there any other games that you play that you feel like have made that full effort that you're saying Mortal Kombat isn't making currently? Kind of like when you were speaking about Tekken or Street Fighter, etc. Do you feel like those games are taking the time to do that, and that's why their reputation is growing while this one seems to be diminishing?
I feel like all three games were in a similar place at one time. Street Fighter V, we all know it didn't launch in the best spot. People were not happy. Tekken 7 was in the same way. People weren't always happy right away. However, both Capcom and Namco did a lot during the ending periods of Street Fighter V and Tekken 7 to rebuild that goodwill. And when Street Fighter 6 launched, it launched and was received well because they began to build a lot of that goodwill back toward the end days of Street Fighter V. The same with Tekken 7. And then when Tekken 8 came out, it was just up from there. Mortal Kombat, consequently, did nothing but go down in MK11. Just a game of doing nothing and giving people less and less and less. Just, oh, here's the new combat pack with some cameos. They did the least impactful changes possible. And then when MK1 launched, people were like, well, surely they can't do it again. And they did. So I feel like they have not made any effort. And I think a lot of that comes down to the content creators. The content creators are what I call toxic positive content creators.
Okay. Yeah, I'll share that with you.
People like you that say, I'm not happy, they tell you you're salty or you're a hater, and they literally convince NetherRealm, hey, nothing's wrong with your game. It's fine. And listen, and all the thing, it's fine. These just haters. They're grifting for YouTube viewers, which is so funny because you have people with hundreds of thousands of followers saying people that have only, maybe 1,000 or 2,000 followers are grifting for money. That's a joke.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a joke. We have small followings. Nobody cares. Well, I know nobody cares what I have to say, right? I have a small following. I don't care. I don't make any money off YouTube. However, these people are just constantly in NRS's ear. The game is fine. What we have heard, what the Shills have said, the toxic positive content creators have said, we know NRS listens to them because what have we heard since day one of the game? After the very first tournament, the game is in a good place. They just have to nerf Cyrex. They did that. Then what came next? The game is still the best ever. They just have to nerf Striker. They did that. Hey, the game is still in a good place. They just have to nerf Raiden. They did that. Well, the game is still in a good place. The problem is they just have to nerf Peacemaker. They did that. Well, the game is still in a good place. They didn't nerf him enough. They nerfed him again. Oh, well, the game is still in a good place. The problem now is just Johnny. They nerfed him. The game is still in a good place. They just have to just nerf Chameleon. They did that. Well, the game is still in a good place, but then they put in Farrah. They have to nerf her. You just keep hearing the same thing over and over and over again, and it never changes. But that's what NRS is doing. None of these toxic positive content creators hold NRS accountable. None of them say this is the problem. We need more power. We need this. We need that. None of them will do that. None of them dare give their real opinion because obviously their monetary value is tied to this, and NRS has a blacklisting policy. But in Tekken, the main man can say whatever he wants and criticize Namco, and things will get better. Players can do this without being blacklisted. Why? Because Namco values feedback. They say, if something is wrong, how can we make it better? They don't say, fuck you, you're telling me I don't have the best game ever, this guy's gone. That's NRS. Yeah. Capcom is the same way. The NRS, they only want yes men. That is the problem. If nothing changes, nothing changes. The people they listen to are yes men, nothing will ever change because of that.
Yeah, I would never put creators' names on that. But as far as like looking at it from the outside,
this is even more bigger problem. They can call us out all day, and they do. However, we can't even mention their names. Unbelievable.
I mean, you would look like a hater at that point. Like you like somebody. You would look
but
more
they
jealous
hate all
than
the time.
True, but it would make you look jealous versus like that you have a real opinion about something. Like somebody would attribute to your follower count, etc.
They call us out all the time.
But I have agreed with that because I mean from my outside looking in, I've always said since I first came in, like I'll be honest about the game. So like I'll be in full transparency here. I've said before I wanted an official relationship with NRS. However, I would never like a lot of my audience to get it. So I don't get a kick out of speaking negatively about Mortal Kombat 1. I just would prefer a better experience. But you're essentially saying the same exact thing that I am, but you're saying that from a more technical standpoint, if they can't make the game better as far as the characters go, because the cameos will introduce the fact that they can't predict. Well, I've just been saying that it should just be a one-on-one game or either a 2v2 game where you take the cameos out and make the actual characters the 2v2 assist character that could combo swap. But I think the current state of the game can't be saved. Like it can't be saved. With this foundation can't be saved to me.
The foundation right now cannot be saved because there's always going to be a constant variable that they don't know how it's going to interact with the game. So they can't raise the base power when there's a variable that is unknown that can still be introduced. And the problem is NRS introduces these gimmicky systems. They have this variation system, and then here's the third game. Maybe they could say, hey, we've learned a lot. We have perfected it maybe. We know what we have to do. We can do a custom variation system. We have to change slotting. Nope. What do? They scrapped the variation system now. They tried one version of it in MKX, and when they had enough knowledge, then they changed how the variation system was and tried a custom system, which you could say maybe with years of knowledge of the variation system, if they tried it again, it might actually work because they have more knowledge for their mistakes. Nope, now they changed it to go to a cameo system. And even if you were to say, let's say this game lives 4 years or 3 years, by the end of that time, they would have a grasp of the problem of the cameo system. They're just gonna change that by the next game. NRS is always doing a system that is experimental, that takes years to get a grasp on and perfect, and then right when they could possibly perfect it, then they switch to something else that's experimental that now takes the life cycle to perfect, and then they switch it again and again and again. That is their problem. That is their problem.
Yeah, Tekken 8 is definitely an extension of Tekken 7 and just made better. The same thing with Street Fighter 6. This game is like, I personally thought that they were working on Injustice 3 and then they scrapped it based on like demand or something like that. Because this doesn't feel like Mortal Kombat to me at all, in general. It just doesn't feel like it.
No, it doesn't have the MK feel. It really doesn't.
When do you think this game is gonna, with this being a problem that can't really necessarily be solved, when do you see this game's life cycle ending? Do you think it's over by the end of next year?
I don't think there's another Pro Series, and I think maybe by the end of next year, Mortal Kombat gets removed from tournaments altogether.
So with that being said, then I feel like
Now, I
because
could be wrong. They could throw us a curveball, and in Chaos Reigns, steroid buff all the characters, then all bets are off. You'll lose a lot of players that are here today, but fuck them. They don't do shit anyway. They don't show up for tournaments, nothing. So,
yeah.
But you would bring a lot of your tournament audience back and rebuild. It'll never be what it could be. You'll never bring a lot of people back. They're gone and they're going to stay gone. However, you would begin to build for the next game.
Well, I think the next game, I feel like based on how this is going, I feel that they have to pretty much move on to Injustice 3 just to give Mortal Kombat a break because the goodwill is down. So I can see the next Mortal Kombat game not coming to like 2030 at the earliest. That's how I feel, which is kind of disappointing.
I agree with you. If from a business model point of view, we all know to change things costs money, right? So if you're at Warner Brothers, you would say, you know what? To spend a ton of money to change a lot of things, it's the majority of people, they've made up their mind they're not coming back, right? So if we're really going to spend big money, we might as well do it in the next game and start fresh where we can really rake in the sales. Because I don't think MK will ever, this game, I think the word of mouth is so bad. I mean, imagine how many people got this game over Christmas. You got your whole Christmas break and you can't even play the game online because it's DCing. What do you think they do? You think any of their friends want to buy the game?
Yeah, of course not.
Right? Think about that. Think how many people were like, hey, yeah, we're going to play over Christmas. Yeah, we got all this time. Got Mortal Kombat. Can't play. Desync. They're like, man, this sucks. So they move on to something else. And people like that, oh, hey, guess what? We did all this. I moved on to something else. They're not coming back. So I do think from a business perspective, I don't think they're going to dump a ton of more money into this game. And I think they will move on sooner rather than later because of that.
Yeah, that's disappointing because I was watching one of my old memories on like the video, and then when the launch trailer came, the excitement that was on my face, like the nostalgia of it was like, man, that feeling is really 100% going about this game. Like I don't play it anymore. Not because I don't want to intentionally. It's just like, why would I play this if I can play Street Fighter 6 and Tekken 8 and Dragon Ball Fighters and stuff like that?
Feeling of dread, right? Instead of feeling like fun, it's like,
yeah, it feels like work.
I guess I gotta play Mortal Kombat. Yeah, it does. Yeah, you don't look forward to it anymore. You really don't. And I feel like even the top players feel that way, which is why they say things like, well, I'm not gonna travel unless there's money. Mm-hmm. That just says that you don't like it. And not just any money. Well, how about $10,000? $10,000.
Yeah, it's got to be something life altering almost.
I don't know about that. I mean, like, dude, I mean, like, crazy to me. Crazy.
Yeah, I think what I hope that people take from this video more than anything else, because it's like what I've said about those reputations that get developed, hearing you talk about it from a more technical standpoint, and then me who has more of a, I guess you could say competitive casual experience on my side that doesn't have like the tournament lore that you have, I would hope that people can kind of see like, okay, this is not necessarily about hating the franchise. It's actually more so about being passionate and wishing that they would deliver, but like they can't deliver if they don't have honest feedback.
Yeah, and the thing is, you're right. The cameo system, the way it's currently constructed, makes this game unsalvageable.
Yeah, I've been saying that for a while, and I've been saying for a 2v2 hope, but I know that requires manpower and dev power and money, and I mean, if they barely want to change anything now, if they barely want to change do any work now, they're certainly not going to make it a 2v2 mode and build a full move set for, all the cameos. Yeah, because I even thought if you do that, like let's say that you have modes, I thought that maybe if you do that, maybe you take the cameos out of that version and let that be based on like the characters within the roster. Or if you do a 1v1, I guess that's possible. The problem is the characters individually don't have enough for one versus one to be fun. Some have so much while others have so little. Like I'm a Liu Kang player from 11, and I feel like Liu Kang is so bare bones. Like he's effective, but I mean, he's just so boring compared to the mix that he had in Mortal Kombat 11.
People mistake that. Same with me in MK11. For me, if you're looking from Sub-Zero's from past MK games, and they say, well, look, Sub-Zero's better now on the roster than he was in those past games. He doesn't have any bad matchups. And I'm like, but all I'm doing is slide from full screen, overhead, and low. You can't keep me entertained if what is being done on the first day is still what's being done on the last day. It's like there's no discovery. It's so bare bones. So for people to say, well, Liu Kang is still really good, you're like, Yeah, I'm not saying he's a bad character. What I'm saying is there is no creativity. It's just
I'm literally staggering F4 or staggering 1-2 and throwing. That's all.
stagger, throw. Yeah, that's it. Yep. No, 100%. But I gotta get going, Lou. It was good talking to you, man. And look, man, people mistake people like you as a hater, but you're just saying it because you love it. Hey, you got an Mortal Kombat. The reason why, like I said in the previous video, people's why, whether you're a top YouTube content creator or a bottom one, a top streamer or a bottom one, just getting into streaming today, if you're a tournament player or the guy that gets last in pools, why you start playing is always the same. You love it. And
That's
you
right.
started making content. You didn't say, "Yeah, I'm about to make some money." You said, "Man, I love this game to a point that I want to invest a considerable amount of time for it and make content for it." It was not a matter of monetary. It was a matter of you enjoyed it. So, and that is what's lost in this game. People are no longer enjoying it for the most part.
Yeah, that's 100% facts. It's definitely not about money. It's just about the excitement of doing something that you love. But when you don't really love the game, how can you make the content around it, you know?
It's tough. Yeah, you don't want to do it anymore. But yeah, you're definitely, you're not a hater. You come from a place out of passion, not hate.
I'm hoping people see that with this video with you as well, bro. I really appreciate the time.
No worries, Lou, man. You have a good one.
You too, bro. Thanks a lot.
All right, later.